Hi guys, how are you? Eilers-Heffner, Sapphire Ambassador. We're starting the Affirmations book by Noah St. John today. So we're covering the introduction plus the first two chapters, which I feel were such a quick read. And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm like, I have to keep reading because I'm like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing, right? This whole section was pretty much that like introduction and kind of explaining his take on affirmations, where he's made up the word affirmations and justified it by the fact that, however many years ago we didn't have the internet and we didn't know what the web was and stuff. So why not, right? So I do like his tips in that front part, just doing a lot of reflection, taking that time to stare at the sky, go for a walk, let these concepts sink in. And I think just because we're busy people and working or managing our business or have kids and all the things, and so we're so used to go, 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 go that we aren't always reflecting. And just taking that time to reflect and ask ourselves these questions, right? Asking ourselves the affirmation type questions and letting our creative brain take over is super important and empowering. So I remember hearing stories of Fallon like laying in her pool and just speaking over her business and speaking over her life and her kids and just saying like, I have the fastest growing team in Plexus. I have products and a business that people need and desire, which affirmations, there's nothing wrong with those. So I don't want his way of writing all of this and stuff to say we shouldn't be doing affirmations. But his point is that if those are not working or we don't ourselves believe them, then it's not it's not actually effective. So his take here, right, that he explains in this whole thing is asking ourselves these questions in order for our brain to flip on to solving that problem and asking ourselves things in a positive way, not a disempowering way. So anyway, I also, and I've said this before on calls, I think it's been a while since I've said it, so maybe some new people haven't heard it, but when we teach something, then that helps us solidify our knowledge too. So post something on social media, do a quick live in your stories or on your Facebook wall, call up your mom or your best friend, talk to your husband or your wife, talk about what you're learning. And this goes from now and forever and ever on men that we should be doing this because it helps solidify our learning. So I don't know if you guys all knew this, but I taught in a PTA program or a PT program for 15 years. And I always taught pediatrics because that was always my passion inside physical therapy. And I tell you what, when I was teaching adult learners stuff, I had to know it, right? Like talk about intimidating. Where thank goodness we are not like having to write tests and quizzes and give people practicals and assignments and big papers, right? But we can simply teach and share what we're learning. And this was even an example yesterday. I was listening to a different book because this one unfortunately is not on Audible, and I'm so sorry. I did not realize that. But I was listening to something else and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so thought-provoking. Let me talk about it. Let me add value to my social media. Let me add value to my network. So that's the other reason that we want to be teaching. And we have a great platform by being able to talk to our friends and family every day on our social media. So really that's quite amazing, right? That, think about 25 years ago, you could email people. Like that was pretty much it. I remember emailing my best friend who moved to Colorado. So, and then it doesn't matter what we know, right? It really is going to come down to that disciplined action. So keeping that in mind, and this is so true about everything in our lives, like working out. Okay, I know I should go walk. I know I should lift weights because it's good for my body, but we don't see the changes until we do it in a disciplined action every day. And like today, I was tired at the gym. The trainer's like, you are tired. I'm like, I know, I want to go home. She's like, but you're here, just get through it, and I'm still benefiting my body, even if I wasn't able to work out as hard as maybe I normally would, right? It's okay. It's disciplined action. And then I really like how he talks about simple versus easy. We talk about this. Our business is simple. we do the same things. We post on social media, we talk to our friends and family, we plug people in to the groups, the information, we send information, we ask them questions, we sign them up. We follow the customer care system, which is copy and pasting. Like anyone can do that. It is simple, but it's not always easy because we come up with challenges. We have to deal with our own mind battles, right? And that's why we're doing this book, is so we can overcome obstacles that we might have in our own self-talk and in our own brain. And, easy is like no effort to accomplish, right? Like it's easy to fall asleep. I don't have to put effort into falling asleep. Now, poor Lauren has had to put effort in her day to fall asleep. Hopefully we're on the other side of that for the most part, but until this baby comes, then it's just a whole nother new not sleeping thing. But anyway, there's lots of things that we do that are easy. There isn't a lot of effort versus being simple and just following through. Again, it's that consistent, disciplined action. And if we want to change our mindset, if we want to change our thoughts, if we want to change our business, if we want to change our communication, then something has to change. So nothing changes if nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I know that, I've thought about that, like, okay, what I'm doing isn't working. So I do have to change something, right? And it's okay to have, again, it's okay to have feelings that we have. It's okay to have grief. It's okay to have sadness. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to have emotions and feelings. We're humans. It's not okay for our emotions to run us. They're here to serve us. They're not here to run us, but it's also not okay to stay in bad spots. Like it's okay to have those feelings, but what's the next step to come out of that? And then, doing the exercises he's going to give us, that 40-day mark. And I love, what is our purpose on earth? To be a blessing to others, which is what Plexus says. That's what Alec and Tarl have always said, and that it's okay to succeed. I don't struggle with the fear of success, but I know that can be very common. And I probably fear more the fear of failure, right? Because I'm setting out to grow a business. I've set out to take you guys on. We have our own team page now, right? Like that's a big deal. And I don't want to fail you and I don't want to fail myself. So there you go. All right. So anyway, what he gets into with part 1, that chapter 1, is that how incredible our minds are, how powerful they are. God created them to be so powerful. And that whenever there's a change, right, there's growth, there's a change. We go from crawling to walking. That's a change. Something had to change. You want to go into the gross motor development side of that? I am your girl. That is not this call though. So we have that, right? We have other things. We are learning to be PTs or OTs, or you get that first baby and you have to figure it out. Something has to change. You have to learn and grow to get to that next step of being successful or making those changes. And that's good. It's how we're created. So when he did talk about, our thoughts are from God, we plant them in these seed thoughts and we plant them in fertile soil. Like I just was reminded of Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image, and the image of God, he created him. And it goes on. And I just was like, yes, like we were created for a purpose, with his imprint on us, right? And so now it's our time to let that shine and to also take our thoughts captive so that our thoughts and our emotions can be serving us and we're not serving them. So love that. And then just how our life becomes a reflection of the thoughts that we have. What are we consistently thinking? Because that is what our life is going to show. Do you believe your affirmations? We've talked a lot. I don't know, we probably haven't talked about this in a while, but positive affirmations. It used to be on our older IPA sheets. So I don't know, maybe some of you have seen those where we just say like positive things about ourselves. And that's good. We should still do that. But his point is if you don't actually believe those things, then there's a gap. Then you're just saying stuff and there isn't that change. And he's helping us to see how we can take this a little bit further and have change. So remembering that our perceived reality is our perceived reality, right? It's reality to us. So if I'm watching a game cheering for one team and you're watching the game cheering Tracy's over there cheering for MSU and I'm cheering for U of M. We're not seeing the same game, even though we're seeing the same game, right? I'm like, go blue. She's like, go green. We're like, fumble. And she's like, yeah, like it's a different experience when we are like competing and our teams are competing, right? And it's pretty crazy too, I think, with maturity, with time. Like when I was a kid, we didn't cheer for the other runners. I wasn't impressed by we're in the middle of track season, well, the starting of track season. And I wasn't like, oh, wow, look at that runner. She's so fast, or he's really talented. Now I see other teams. If they're smoking our team, I am like, good job, keep going, like, way to go. You know, I will cheer for anyone that's working hard and showing talent and showing dedication and discipline, right? And so that's interesting. It's just I think a maturity thing too, but you know, it's just very different being a parent watching your kids compete than not. Now come to basketball. My husband is much better about like complimenting other teams than my kids' team. If it's basketball, I'm like only cheering. I haven't gotten there yet. Working on being more mature in basketball. Anyway, and then how do we take that perceived reality and that desired reality? How do we close that gap? And it comes through asking questions and asking them the right way. And that's where we get into chapter 2. Like, a question is an expression of inquiry that calls for a reply. And if you listen to any of the coaching, right? Like Fallon will do coaching. And what does Fallon do? Somebody asks the question, she doesn't respond. She asks like 6 more questions, right? She's asking more and more questions to get the information in order to have a response. And when we can do that in our own brains and we can do that with our team, we're going to get a lot further, right? We're going to uncover. And I am still learning this because y'all know me. Most of you know me better than others, but all of you are getting to know me. And you know that I'd rather just be like, do this. Like, it's easy for me to just be like, have the answer. So learning to get more and more curious and asking more and more questions is something we can all learn and definitely do. And I know Fallon's like always asking more and more questions on these, you know, gold coaching. Here's Fallon asking more questions, not answering. And then asking questions in such a way that we're going to get an answer, but in a positive way. So I really like how he talks about, you know, every problem is simply a question that hasn't been answered yet, right? Like, okay, I'm having problems with getting my team to do this. It doesn't matter. It's all figure outable. None of this matters. It's going to be figure outable. It means we can figure it out. We can ask the questions. We can solve the problem. And so it just means we have an opportunity to grow, to challenge ourselves, and to move forward. So it's all a win-win-win. Like, and especially with network marketing, like, we're not going to kill somebody. We're not endangering someone. We can only learn and grow, and we can do it together. In the hospital, being a PT, you know, like, holy cow, there were some situations where I could have hurt someone, right? And it's important that we know what we know in order to keep our patients safe, and that we work with the nurses and all of that. But thank goodness we don't have that weight on us in network marketing in Plexus. And we have a lot of upline support too. So we can always get that help, right? And then our minds, I just saw this meme and it was not meant to be serious. It was like, somebody asks me an actual fact and it was like a cartoon. It's probably from a movie, you know, like it reminds me of like the Emperor's Groove or something, where the donkey was like picking up, and it was like random movie facts and the weather and just random facts all over. And I feel like our brains, like, that's what our brains do. They're searching for the right answer all of the time. Not the right answer. They're searching for answers all of the time. And which is pretty amazing. It's just, you don't have to say, let me think about this. Like, you're in the shower and you end up thinking about stuff. And then the example of the 13-year-old girl who was not sleeping and worrying and just changing her things that she could say to herself. Why am I worry free? Why do I enjoy a full night's rest? So that was good as well. Then he had several questions listed that helped her overcome that. And then that is a way that we can reflect on these to help us overcome the disempowering questions that we have. So that was really important. The disempowering questions are negative reflection. And empowering questions are focusing our mind on what we have, what we can do, and who we are. And then he said to write down those disempowering questions and then change them. So I started to do that too. And I think that's all I have for you. Then I lost my page in my book here. So anyway, that's what I had. I'd like to open it up. I could probably go into more details, but I just really liked how he gave those examples and was allowing us to have, giving us, I really feel like we need to get into the next thing to have that more, what is it that we are going to do next, but we have a really good foundation of that. So what stood out to you guys? You guys can tell me.
Okay, I have to be honest, I don't have the book. I ordered it, and Living in the Boonies, it has not arrived yet. But the disempowering thoughts that you were talking about reminds me, because tomorrow morning our kids are going to Science Olympiad. It's a state competition, and we're a little hole in the wall school up in the UP. And the kids have been telling themselves, well, we're competing against these big schools and all this stuff, and we're not going to win. We don't even have a chance. We don't have this. And so they're setting themselves up for failure already, even though last year we did really well. We had some people in the state that got 4th out of all the schools in the state. So, we need to say, hey, this is a lie we're telling ourselves. We have to empower ourselves. It's the same thing of, I can't get any new joins. I can't rank up. I can't do this. That's garbage. It's true only if you tell yourself that. So if you're telling yourself that, you're self-sabotaging all along the way. So I really like trying to get rid of those disempowering thoughts.
Jackie, my book hasn't come, so I don't know if it's like, I don't know, it was supposed to be here today, now it says tomorrow, but anyway, I really liked the positive affirmations, and I've done them, but I remember doing them for the first time maybe a year ago with Plexus, and I remember thinking when I was writing them down, like, this feels weird, because I did not believe what I was writing. Now it's easier, but that first time I was like, this feels like silly. Like, it doesn't even, I don't feel right doing this. It just kind of felt dumb. But it makes a difference, because then you're like, oh, I really need to work on my mindset for belief. So.
I guess lesson learned too, that we really do need to announce the next book sooner. Sorry, we're all learning and growing. Thank you for being patient.
Either way, you guys are going to love the book once it finally comes. My favorite part of the book, of what I've read so far, is when it talks about the belief gap, that what we're doing now, and where we want to be, there's a belief gap that's kind of stopping us from getting there. And, looking at the affirmations and asking yourself the questions creates the new reality that you want, because really it's just like a different perception of where we're at, kind of like the game thing that Elizabeth was talking about, watching the opposing sides, you know, how I perceive myself, whether I feel successful in life or feel productive. It's really just a matter of perspective sometimes. And so it's the same thing for whatever your goal is, just phrasing it a little bit different, just being curious and asking yourself questions, even if maybe you haven't reached some of those more concrete goals of like being a diamond, because, there's certain things you have to do, but curious, okay, how can I get there? What's the next step? What am I missing? And kind of leading yourself into that, instead of, using your thoughts as just a statement and using those statement affirmations, because it's almost like a solution instead of finding, what is going to work for you, and just being curious.
I love that. Thank you. I think I've told you guys that the first thing I ever did with Plexus was a book club. I didn't do any posting yet. I did a book club and we did the 21 Laws by John Maxwell. So in the front of this, I have positive affirmations that I wrote way back then. And then also, I did not go back and look this, like reread this chapter, but I want to, because this book currently that we're doing reminds me of the law of magnetism and, you know, looking for those qualities and exuding qualities that we're looking for in business builders and partners in our life and friends and stuff like that. So, and John's really solid where, you know we're getting solid like leadership advice. So law of magnetism, I'm sure that you could look in the team pages and find a review of the law of magnetism in, from a book club. And it's not that long of a chapter either. Like it's literally, if you have this book, it would be worth reading the 7 pages, like front and back. So it would be worth it. But that was kept coming to mind with this stuff too. It's a piggyback.
I don't necessarily have anything profound to add other than those were a lot of my takeaways too that you guys have all said, is like figuring out where the gap is, our belief gap. I thought that was really powerful. It just made me realize how powerful our minds really are too, because we do start searching for questions right away or for answers to questions. So taking those affirmations a step further. There have been times in my life when affirmations is what I need, and I just need to write down a couple positive things, and that's what gets me to the next place. But then there are times that it has not been enough. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit further. And I just want to say a blanket statement about how I like this book, because I usually do listen on Audible a lot. And I struggle to like sit down and read, if I'm being honest, but I still do it. I usually buy the Audible and the regular book and read and listen. But I have found that this has been, for those of you that don't have the book yet, it's easy to read and it makes you engaged and you really do want to keep reading. So I feel like that's just a really good, something positive to say about the book in general, is that it feels like something that you can accomplish and it feels like you can grasp it and actually pay attention and read. So so far, I'm really excited to get further into it.
That's actually a great tip, Lauren. I did that with The Power of One More, had both the Audible and the book. And then you can listen and hear the words the author saying and how he enunciates and where he puts inflections on different things, and then go back and reinforce that as you're reading. So that's a great tip. Yeah, I wish we could get the Audible for this one too. Just picked up the book today. So far, I'm enjoying it. Got through the introduction. I like the Be a Blessing, and very, very intrigued by this book with the whole idea that asking yourself the right questions so that your subconscious mind can really start diving in and solving your own things that you're thinking about, or the questions or the problems that you're having. And then I really like the one tip he had on page, well, it's XXVI, what would that be, 25 or 28. But the question is, or the suggestion is to write down the date of an idea or a thought in the book that really struck you. So that way, if you get to rereading the book later on, you can see how far you've come since you first read it, or you had that original thought or idea. So I thought that was a great tip. And so at the very beginning of the book, I went and wrote the date of when I started reading the book. So when I get a chance to go back through the book, I'd be like, oh, wow. Okay. Way back then I had these thoughts, or these ideas really struck me as unique, and just, it'll be cool to see how far we've come as we read through the book and reread the book.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that you guys are finding it to be an easy read too. I looked at a book, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, and it's 500 pages of tiny writing. The book's like 2.5 inches thick. It feels like it's 2.5. It's like 1.5 inches. I'm like, that seems really daunting, even to me, because it's a lot of reading, you know? And also I feel like this gives us an opportunity to read other stuff that we've been wanting to read too, or to have an audible of something else that we want to read. So we can, you know, have a couple personal growth things happening at the same time. If we want, not everyone is as schizophrenic in their reading as I am. I'll admit that. I did look it up. It looks like this version was updated and published in 2013. I'm like, man, time just goes by so fast. I actually bought this a long time ago. I don't remember exactly when. And I buzzed through the first few chapters. And I really think what happened is I was like, oh, okay, I just need to ask myself positive questions, right? Like empowering questions. And that's what I started doing, and never went and like actually finished reading the book. So told you I was schizophrenic in my reading, but I don't know. I felt like I had a tool and a plan. And so that's what I did. And I was growing in my business and personal growth and all this stuff. So it was enough to like jumpstart that journey. Right. So anyhow.
That's what I love about book club, Elizabeth, is that I do the same thing. You know, I'd pick up a book and read through the first few chapters and get distracted by something and never get back to it.
It's crazy. That's where Audible really comes in handy too. Like, okay, let me actually finish out some books, you know, on Audible. I'll pick them back up on there just to like say I accomplished something, which is good for it's good for me. All right. Anybody else have something they want to throw out at us? I'm sure we'll have more discussion as the book goes on, because the intro in the first two chapters were still kind of more of an introduction of the whole book. So looking forward to meeting with you guys the next few weeks, and we'll be heading into convention shortly after this book ends. So that's exciting too. We get to like be in person again. And then Momentum meetup on Saturday. So hopefully I'm gonna end the recording. So